Our next Iowa entrepreneur story takes us to southwest Iowa to the small town of Harlan. Harlan boasts a historic downtown square. 46 of the buildings in the square were built before 1902, and many are listed in the National Register. Just outside of Harlan, in the middle of a cornfield, is the home and business of Arlen Sorensen. This is the house where Arlen grew up, and it's also where he launched several successful businesses.
I grew up on the farm here in western Iowa with my family. It was a great place to grow up. Families were all close here, and we were able to spend a lot of our holidays and weekends together, and it was just a good experience to grow up here in rural Iowa.
In 1982, Arlen purchased his first computer, an Apple II Plus, to help with his farming operation. In the early 80s, it was rare to see a computer, especially in rural Iowa. Arlen invited friends and neighbors to come to the house to see this fascinating technology. Soon, he was helping them purchase their own computers.
It began to take off, and for the next 5 years, my wife and I really ran a small weekend and evenings business of selling farm accounting systems to area farmers. And it just grew and grew and grew, and pretty soon I was having to take time off during the day to go work on some of these things, and I began to realize that, you know, there's really an opportunity here in rural Iowa to help people use technology to make their farms run more efficiently.
Arlen and his brother Brad were busy managing the farm and the new computer business. Instead of renting commercial property in town, they decided they would run everything from one centralized location, the farm.
You know, we really weren't set up to run a business. We ran it out of our home, so I had my small office that I had built on when we moved back to the home place here, about a 16 by 16 space, and that's where I ran the computer business for the first 5 years. Problem with that was the only way to get into my office was to come in through our living room, down through our family room. So my kids grew up during those 5 years with people walking right through the middle of their cartoons and TV shows, and it was pretty disruptive. But my wife was very understanding and supportive, and we made it through that. So that when we got to 1990 and we hired our first employee, that's when we added another room on with an outside entrance and began to take away some of the stress that the business was causing on our family life.
Arlen taught classes at his home from 6 to 10 o'clock every night and trained people how to use different software and computers. He enjoyed helping people, but he also saw potential to grow into helping other businesses with their technology needs.
We hired a couple of network engineers and began to do work for local banks and schools and other entities. In 1995, we had a significant growth spurt because that's when Microsoft released Windows 95, which was really the first time the computer became somewhat easy to use. And so we had a huge year in 95 with that release, and we had to hire 8 folks that year just to keep up with the demand. And it was a very scary time. You know, hiring the first employee was probably the most scary thing that I did in my career, but big growth spurts like that also were challenging because payroll grew significantly, and you've got to think about how you're going to create the cash flow to support that.
In 1995, the Sorensens branched into the precision agriculture space and started a company that later became known as HTS Ag. As the business expanded, so did Arlen's house, to make space for his employees and customers.
We added on 12,500 square feet in 5 different additions right on the end of my house, and that enabled us to have plenty of space for what we were doing at the time. By 99, we had grown to about 36 employees, and we were gearing up for Y2K. That was supposed to be the event that was going to be the catapult to the next level. So we hired folks, we trained folks, we got ready. The end of 1999 came, 2000 arrived, and there was no Y2K business for me. And that was a problem because we had probably 10 people more than we really needed for the amount of work we had to do. And so as we got into the early months of 2000, we knew we were in a real challenging position. What we didn't know was why. In April of that year, one of my employees said, let's call some other dealers in Iowa and just find out, what's going on with them.
So, 3 tech companies from different areas of Iowa joined Harlan and his leadership team in Des Moines for a day of comparing notes and sharing experiences.
We learned so much from each other. We learned we weren't the only ones that were experiencing the fact that Y2K missed Iowa completely. And it was very empowering to go home knowing, no, we weren't doing something wrong. It's just the reality of the marketplace. And that's really the power that we learned about peer groups, is if we sit down and talk to other business owners, we can learn so much. We don't have to make every mistake on our own. We can learn from others. We can take advantage of their experiences. And that's been the foundation we've used with our Heartland Tech Group program, HTG, since 2000.
The HTG peer group was never intended to be a business. But over the next couple of years, people in the industry would hear about the benefits associated with these group meetings, and businesses would call Harlan wanting to be added to the discussion.
And pretty soon we had a waiting list with 20 companies on it. And I said, well, okay, maybe there's enough crazy people that would do this. And we started a second group in the summer of 2006. And in the fall, we started a third group. And then in 2007, we added 10 groups. And pretty soon we had a business in place, and we were trying to hang on for dear life because the demand was way bigger than our little staff could handle. So the thing we learned was that people just want to feel like they're part of a group that cares about them, that they can share openly and honestly with. A lot of small business leaders and owners, they don't have a place they can actually share openly. You can't really talk to your employees about the real challenges you're having in your business. So who do you actually share that stuff with and get insight from? And it became a place that could help people succeed.
Harlan and his team of employees enjoyed organizing the international community of HTG peer groups and helping other businesses. But it was taking a toll on their personal and professional lives.
As an entrepreneur, I always see the upside opportunity without necessarily looking at the reality of the situation. And as we made that large growth spurt back in 2007, I asked my leadership team from my technology business, HTS, to facilitate all these peer groups. So they were doing a full-time day job, and I was asking them to take a week every quarter, basically to facilitate peer groups and help other companies from the things we had learned. And I'll never forget the fall of 2007, one of my management team employees came to me and said, you got to stop. We got to stop. We can't do this. You're going to kill us. We're trying to run a significant IT company, and then you've got this other thing you've thrown on kind of on top that we're spending a lot of time, and yeah, we're helping a lot of people, but we're suffering ourselves, and we've lost our life-work balance, and we've got to make some changes. So we did make some significant changes at the end of that year, and we brought in other people to facilitate, and my team got their life back. That's a challenge for entrepreneurs. We see the positive. We don't always see the reality of what's involved in making those things happen, and that's one of the lessons I've had to learn in leading my own companies. Is my team has taught me I have to say no sometimes, and I certainly have to think about the balance between what we're doing from a time and resource perspective and what that impact's going to be to our profitability.
Harlan's companies continued to grow, but just like his employees, dividing his attention between too many things began to take its toll. In 2012, his passion and priorities changed, and he decided to sell one of his companies.
Out of the middle of this cornfield in Iowa, we grew to 102 employees. We had 7 offices across 5 Midwestern states, and we had a significant business going on. I had a great management team, but it was stressful. And quite honestly, I began to lose my passion for that technology. And I just was ready for a change.
The perfect opportunity presented itself, and Harlan decided to sell HTS to an Iowa-based telecom and computer service company. Harlan spent his extra free time with his family, as well as growing HTG peer groups to over 450 companies throughout North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific.
You know, I've had so many people say, you can't do what you're doing in the middle of a cornfield. It's just not possible. If you would build this business even in Harlan, but if you were in Omaha or some big city, you could really turn it into something. Well, I'm fine with where we got, right? We have been successful. We continue to be successful in the middle of an Iowa cornfield. It's not about where you're located. It's about how you serve those that you're working with. And if you take care of the customer, you can do it from anywhere. We're proud of what we've done, and it's been done with the help of a lot of really great people, all from rural America here. And they have worked hard. That's the beauty of being in rural Iowa, is you've got hardworking folks that care about others and will show up every day and do a great job. And that's really been our success, is the people that we've pulled together on a common mission and vision, and we've gone out to serve others.
In Season 1, we traveled to Council Bluffs to feature third-degree screening. Our next story takes us back to the county seat of Pottawatomie County. Council Bluffs offers many museums and parks, as well as other unique entertainment options. It was also designated by Abraham Lincoln as the official starting point of the Transcontinental Railroad, and by the 1930s, the city had grown into the country's 5th largest rail center. Our next Iowa entrepreneurs, Frank and Susan Grund, have grown an international entertainment business in their hometown of Council Bluffs. The couple met in the late 70s when they joined a band that toured the country. Susan was the lead singer and keyboard player, while Frank played guitar.
I have no regrets. Financially, it was a disastrous decision for a life plan, I guess, but I wouldn't trade the experience for anything. I probably would have regretted if I hadn't done it. So, no, it was fantastic. I mean, just being able to travel and see all the different places and meet all the different people. And, I mean, what's not to love about playing in a band? I mean, it's wonderful to be able to express your musician skills and do something that you love to do.
It's very challenging. But definitely playing music is very rewarding as well. At the end of the day, it wasn't like you had to work. It was like people enjoyed what you did, and you enjoyed performing. Touring with the band, it created more of a harmonistic pattern with everybody, and therefore it actually worked with the music. It's when they quit working well together, that's when bands break up.
Frank was as talented with the band's sound equipment as he was on stage. He had a passion for loudspeaker design and building speaker cabinets. Looking for a way to make some extra cash, he built equipment for his growing network of musician friends.
We built some of our own sound systems, partly because it was more affordable to do that, and he had the skill and interest and knowledge to do that, but also because some of them sounded better, we thought, than what we could go out and purchase. So there were other people that knew he did that, and they would say, hey, I need this system or I need this built, and so he would just keep these projects, and then when he wasn't working in the band, he'd come home and fulfill people's orders, so to speak. It wasn't really a business, more than a hobby at that time, because we didn't have time to pursue it as a business.
It was one of those struggles where, is the music the, what's the word I want to say, the hobby, or is the electronics the hobby? So it was always a battle back and forth. And that's why now what we do today, we kind of combined it. Kind of how it started. It was actually incubating back then.
Susan loved performing with the band, but in 1984, after years of traveling from coast to coast, she was ready to settle in one place.
Well, it was hard. It was probably the hardest job I've ever had. A lot of struggles. came home off the road one day and said, I don't want to go back out again. I'm done. I said, if you want to go, I'll be here when you get back, but I want to stay home. I'm done.
They were desperate to have an income, so Susan worked a number of different jobs while Frank kept manufacturing and repairing audio equipment for touring musicians.
Well, that's that hobby type tug of war. Just like, hey, how do you make extra money is go back and fill the orders that people are giving you. And then from that, when the music kind of died out and disappeared, there was the business. We were told to put a name on it so we could sell it.
It wasn't a conscious decision to start the business. We just started filling orders from people. The local music store said, hey, you know, if you put a name on your products, I'll put them in my music store. So we made up a name, ordered some badges, and put them on the products, and they put them in the music store.
Frank and Susan named their company Grundorf. Word of their equipment was spreading across the music industry, and soon there was too much work for Frank. While Susan didn't know how to build the equipment, she was able to help with other important aspects of the business.
Production was done in our little garage, and I had a card table set up in the basement. That was my office, and my typewriter was sitting on the card table. He had to open the doors of the garage to be able to cut a sheet of plywood because it wasn't big enough to do that. So we eventually built a new garage in back of our house, which was much more productive. But that didn't last very long, so then we rented a space.
Realizing touring bands needed a way to protect the equipment while on the road, Frank began building custom cases for Grundorf sound equipment.
I think the cases came along for necessity for the sound reinforcement. We were doing all the sound boxes first, basically, and this is, okay, now we need some boxes to put all the gear in to go with this package. All right, well, we'll go ahead and supply you with those. And it kind of just came together as a marriage because, you know, same product, same parts, if you will, at some point, same machinery, and that's how it kind of came into the connection on it.
Eventually, they split their product offerings into two brands, Grund Audio Design for their speaker cabinets and Grundorf for their equipment cases. In just a couple of years, Frank and Susan had taken a hobby and grown it into a business, distributing their products into major markets across the U.S.
I don't think it was ever sat back and said, you know, I think let's just grow a little more or something. When the sales were in gear and what was going on, it's like we need 2 more employees to do this. So it was more of a demand for us to get the job done.
Then we brought on sales reps and started exhibiting at trade shows and sent our products out nationally at that point. Turned itself into a business. Didn't really set out to do that, but there we were.
By the early 90s, Frank and Susan were back on the road, but this time, instead of touring with a band, they were going to many industry trade shows to market their business and grow relationships with the new clients.
We learned everything just by trial and error and reading and talking to people. And I mean, I don't even know how long we were in business before somebody told us, you have to have a business license. Oh, okay. So go up to the courthouse and file a business license. I mean, we didn't know anything about being in business. And then we had to hire somebody and they said, well, you have to pay payroll tax. Oh, okay. So we had to find out how to pay payroll taxes, and it was just, we learned everything as it came to us. And it's just on-the-job training for us. I wouldn't say that that's the best way to go about it. Having some business education and background would certainly be beneficial before embarking on something as being an entrepreneur, but not impossible, certainly.
Many famous artists like Mannheim Steamroller were now using the products built in Council Bluffs.
I think it's kind of cool, but unfortunately sometimes it's like, gee, do they really know what they're using? No. But it's nice because it is out there and it's real. It's tangible. It's actually being used. It's being sold. It's being bought. You know, sometimes you wonder, you ship so much product out, where's it going? Some black hole somewhere, you never see it. So when I start showing up with bands, touring bands, traveling, you know, you go into a mall and see your speakers hanging in the little entertainment section, stuff like that. Yeah, it's kind of good. It's like, okay, we are real.
Grundorf had clients across the globe as Frank and Susan continued to seek out and develop new products for the music industry.
He's a starter, I'm a finisher. So if you don't have that in your management team, it's going to be very difficult to be successful, in my opinion. And other people have told us that as well. There's kind of a line drawn down the middle of our business. He takes care of one side and I take care of the other. I don't know the first thing about how to build a speaker or to design one. And he doesn't expect me to know. He doesn't know anything about closing books or processing a credit application. I do that. So it's just different skills that we've developed, and we know where we can cross lines and where we can't. And it's just a good division for us.
With no prior knowledge of how to start or run a business, Frank and Susan have been driven by a love for the music and entertainment industry. But just like performing in a band, the path hasn't always been easy.
If you're going to be creative, you're going to have to be pretty much on your own, because limitations are going to come in, therefore the creativity goes away. Who's the boss in the band? Well, everybody's their own boss, so to speak. They may be a leader, but they're their own boss, because that's what allows the creativity to be released. You know, no limitations, good or bad.
I think people always have this concept about, oh, I'll be my own boss and I can work when I want and I can take off when I want. And it's nothing like that. It's like you are married to this business and you live this business. You live it 24 hours a day. And you can become a slave to the business if you aren't careful. You have to really know how to set boundaries, and especially if you're married to the other owner of the business, you live the business at home too. I think there's definitely as many downsides as to rewards of being your own boss. But again, I have no regrets. I think I would have regretted not trying to be up for the challenge, certainly.
Frank and Susan may have started off life as musicians, but now they are successful entrepreneurs. The most important thing they learned was how to work well with each other. Today they look back at all the work they have done and are proud that they found a way to still be involved in the music industry.
I guess just being part of in the music. I mean, we're in the music no matter what happens. We still are in the music, so that blood is there. And that blood is what's keeping you wanting to keep digging at it.